This lesson we are going to cover on correlation. Vocab. Correlation corresponds to relationship between two variables, how closely the data are related. How well a linear regression line fits a given set of data. Linear regression line is the line of the best fit. So when you have a scatter plot, if you can draw a line with the positive or negative slope, it shows positive or negative correlation depending on the slope type. And sometimes we'll have no correlation. Recall dependent independent variables. Independent variable goes on x-axis, also known as input, helps explain what dependent variable will do. Dependent variable goes on y-axis, also known as output, measures outcome. Example: how much tissue you are going to use and runniness of your nose. Independent is runniness of your nose. Dependent is how much tissue you are going to use. Visual representation. For example, if x equals 3, the input is 3 in the function machine and the equation says y equals negative 3x plus 1. We plug in 3 in place of x, so negative 3 times 3 plus 1. So negative 9 plus 1 gives the output y equals negative 8. So independent is input, dependent is output. Positive correlation. You can see the scatter plot, but it shows it's going up. As x values increases, y value also increases. And if you draw a line, so positive correlation, positive slope. Both independent and dependent quantity increases, both data set are increasing. Negative correlation. Negative correlation will have negative slope. Negative slope. Dependent quantity decreases as independent quantity increases. As x value increases, y value is decreasing. No correlation. No correlation, you have data values scattered all over the graph. You cannot draw a positive or negative line. You cannot draw an increasing or decreasing line. No correlation, no relation between the data, no linear relation. Data scattered all over the graph. Correlation coefficient R measures the direction and the strength of the association between two quantitative variables. It is between -1 and 1, shows how close data are to forming a line. If correlation coefficient is closer to 1 or -1, then the relationship between two quantities is stronger and closer to forming a line. If it's closer to 0, then there's no correlation. Correlation coefficient R is between -1 and 1. If it's closer to -1, it's a perfect negative. It's closer to 0, there's no association. If it's closer to 1, it's perfect positive correlation. Strong positive correlation. You can see the data are closer together. The data values are closer together. If you draw the line, some of the data will be on the line and some will be closer to the line. Which correlation coefficient is most accurate? So it's closer to forming a line, right? You have option A, r equals 0.9, option B, r equals negative 0.7, C is r equals 0.07, D, r equals negative 0.9. So we know it's increasing, it's a positive slope, so choice B and D rules out. It's not negative. And it's closer to forming a line, straight line, so it should be closer to 1. So from option A and option C, A is closer to 1, 0.9 is closer to 1, so that could be most accurate. This data show positive correlation, so R value must be positive. Because data are close to forming a straight line, R must be closer to 1, so R equals 0.9 must be accurate. Weak positive correlation. Weak positive correlation, you can see it's increasing data set, but they are a little far apart. You can draw a best fit line, it will be a positive slope, positive correlation, but there's very few data on the line and data are a little far from the line. Which correlation coefficient is most accurate? R equals 0.6, R equals negative 0.6, R equals 0.06, R equals negative 0.06. So it's a weak positive correlation. So the slope should be positive, but it's fairly close to forming a straight line. So option B and D are out. Option C is close to 0. So that's no correlation. Option A is the one that looks more accurate, 0.6. It's not closer to 1 and it's not closer to 0. Closer to 1 must be forming a line. Closer to 0, no correlation. So 0.6, fairly close to forming a line. This data show weak positive correlation, so R value must be positive. Because the data are fairly close to forming a line, so R equals 0.6 must be accurate. Strong negative correlation. Strong negative correlation similar to the positive data are closer together. If we draw the line, most of the data will be on line and some will be closer to the line. So which correlation coefficient is most accurate? R equals 0.9, R equals 0.09, R equals negative 0.9, R equals negative 0.09. It's a negative correlation. And it's a strong negative correlation, very close to forming a straight line. So A and B rules out because they are positive. R equals negative 0.9. Option C looks accurate. Let's check option D. It says R equals negative 0.09. That is close to 0, not negative 1. So C is closer to negative 1. So our answer should be C. These data show a negative correlation, so R must be negative. Because data are close to forming a straight line, R must be closer to negative 1. So R equals negative 0.9 must be accurate. Weak negative correlation. Weak negative correlation same as weak positive correlation. If we draw a line, best fit line, the linear regression line, few data will be on the line and others are spread up and down, above and below the line, but they are not close to the line. So this data set is fairly close to forming a straight line and it has a negative slope, so R must be negative. It's not close to 0 or negative 1. So which correlation coefficient is most accurate? R equals negative 0.6, R equals 0.6, R equals 0.06, R equals negative 0.06. So B and C rules out because they are positive. Now we are left with R. I and D, where R is negative 0.6 and D is R is negative 0.06. So D rules out because it's closer to 0. So we are left with R equals negative 0.6. This data show weak negative correlation, so R value must be negative because the data are fairly close to forming a line. So R equals negative 0.6 must be accurate. No correlation. No correlation or scattered all over, so the R value must be close to 0. Which correlation coefficient is most accurate? R equals 0.9, R equals negative 0.07, R equals negative 0.9, R equals 0.07, R equals 0.007. So I'll say D is closer to 0. There is no correlation in this data set because there is no linear relation between the two quantities. The R value must be close to 0, so R equals 0.007 is most accurate.